All right. Hey, everybody. Hone Tai here, your real estate guy helping you escape your 9 to 5, also helping you guys get loans. So, in this crazy time, we are experiencing a lot of businesses being shut down. We're also experiencing a lot of people being laid off. So, the government has issued a whole bunch of different stimulus packages, such as the payroll protection program, as well as the economic injury disaster loan. So there are things for you guys to apply for if you guys are struggling. But what I wanted to talk to you guys about today was my story about how I used to be an engineer back in I was working as an engineer back in 2012. I was an engineer for 5 years. So what does that take me to, like 2007? So I was an engineer from 2007 to about 2012, and then I got let go. And the crazy part is that wasn't a good time to necessarily be let go because the market had just crashed in 2008, 2009, and then the market hadn't fully recovered yet. It was a slow recovery. This market today might be like that, right? We might be in the beginning stages of a crash, just like what we had in the past. So it's going to be interesting what happens. Now, the thing I wanted to talk to you guys about was how I came out of that, how I was able to not only match my salary but increase my salary. So one of the things once I got let go was I got unemployment. So that did help, and I got unemployment for a year. A lot of you guys will be let go and you guys will be qualified for unemployment. And from what I'm hearing, unemployment actually might pay you more than what you used to get paid. So for some of you guys, this will be an increase, interestingly enough. But that's not necessarily the point of this conversation, because what I want to go over with you guys are the opportunities that are coming up. That's the thing. There are a lot of opportunities coming up, and if you guys hated what you were doing before, this is a perfect time, because now you don't have to go back to whatever it was that you were doing. So when I was an engineer, when I was working in corporate world as an engineer, I used to look at all of the things that I would do, and I would ask myself, is this all there is? Is this it? And I would look at my bosses as well, and I would say, like, okay, 5 years from now, I continue to do what I'm doing now. That is going to be my lifestyle. And it's going to be my lifestyle because the company doesn't have a different plan unique for you. Think about it. Your boss had your job 5 years prior, and then they got a promotion. And that is what was going to be in the cards for me. So if I continue to work the way I'm working, in 5 years, I would have my boss's job. And then my boss would have his boss's job or her boss's job. And then 10 years from now, I would have that job. And that's typically how corporate America is structured. And there is no unique plan for me. It was just like, hey, if you are working a job, this is the plan. There is no other unique plan for you. So that's what I was dealing with. And I kept asking myself, is that what I want? Is that what I want? Can can I foresee being happy, being or doing the job that my boss had? And the answer was always no. And I knew that I needed to get out of that situation. So for a lot of you guys, this is your out. You were forced out because the coronavirus shut your company down. So I knew I needed an out. I kept trying different businesses, and the businesses weren't necessarily great. It wasn't where I was doing so well. Businesses are risky because so they say 9 out of 10 businesses fail. So businesses are risky because a lot of times there are no gatekeepers to keep you from starting a business. So if you want to start a business, you get to. Nobody gets to tell you no. You're just like, okay, I want to start a business. I want to sell t-shirts. Great. Go sell t-shirts. Nobody's going to stop you. The thing is, though, you're not necessarily qualified to sell t-shirts. Sure, anybody can have a t-shirt. It's for sale, but it doesn't mean that it's a good business. And a little bit of an argument is that it's not even a business, it's just a job that you own. So that's a concept that I had learned too, that a lot of times what I created, which I thought was a business, was actually just a job that I owned. So if you're finding yourself doing all of the work, you may not actually have a business, you just have a job. And you just happen to be the boss. So there's a big difference. So every time I tried to do a business, it wasn't necessarily a super profitable business at all, if at all. And the reason is because nobody told me that I couldn't do it. I just said, I'm going to do it. So every time I tried, it didn't go well. But what I learned is that you need a little bit of help. You need some guidance. And then I read the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And that is what changed it all for me. I learned about this concept of passive income. Now, for a lot of you guys, because of social media, because of YouTube and everything else, all of us have heard of passive income. But at the time, I had never really heard about it. And I didn't understand the concept of owning an asset, right? Owning an asset. And in the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad, the main asset that they talk about is owning properties, owning real estate, right? Having rental properties as your form of asset to own that will create passive income. So I was like, oh, wow, okay. And then here's the magic. Here was the magic of it all that I learned that got me hooked. It was that if you own enough assets that create enough passive income to the point where the passive income exceeds your expenses, right? So let's say expenses were $4,000 a month, but your passive income was say $5,000 a month. You're retired. You don't have to work ever again because the passive income coming in is enough to pay off all your expenses. That passive income is called passive because you're not necessarily working for it. You're not trading hours for dollars. The asset is generating the income. So I'm creating something called Assets Over Hours. It's going to be a company talking about collecting assets. But until then, I just want to share with you guys the concept of collecting assets as opposed to working more hours, right? So when you own the asset, it produces passive income. And if that passive income exceeds your expenses, you're free, right? So that idea, that concept to me was like, oh my gosh, it was like groundbreaking to me. So that's where I got hooked. Now, the thing is, I didn't know how to invest in real estate, right? Real estate to me was this thing that was, one, it was boring. It was like, why would I ever want to do that? Who cares for owning properties and all that kind of stuff? It was so boring. So why would I want to do that? The other thing was I thought it was too expensive. Where do you get the money to buy properties and then rent it out to the point where you own enough properties so that you can create enough passive income so that you can actually retire or pay all your expenses, right? Think about it. You might be able to buy one house, right? And my thinking was, okay, I need to go get a bank loan. I need to put a 20% down payment or 30% down payment. And if the house is, say, $200,000, a 30% loan would be $60,000. And though I was working as an engineer, I didn't necessarily have millions and millions of dollars saved up to put all of these down payments down, right? So $60,000, and that's not even including closing costs. That was just a down payment on one property. So even if I bought that one, I'm done. Maybe two, right? You just didn't have all of that in savings in order to buy these properties. It wasn't until I went to a seminar that taught me how to use other people's money, right? OPM, how to use other people's money to buy these assets. I was always looking at it from a home buyer perspective, looking at it like, okay, I need the down payment money. I need all this experience. I need all of these different things. And that was a huge barrier to me. And also, I had no interest because it never dawned upon me to own the asset that produced passive income. I was always in the mindset of I got to create a business and I need to create sales and I need to do all of these things like I thought a business was supposed to be. I never thought about this passive income idea. So then I went to a seminar. After reading the book Rich Dad Poor Dad, I was hooked, right? I was hooked. I was like, okay, the real estate bug or what have you, investing in real estate, that was my in. That is how I was going to make it. That is how I was going to create a business that funded my lifestyle. I just didn't know what to do, right? Again, I was stuck in that mindset of having down payments because that is the mindset that a homeowner or a home buyer has. I need that down payment money. So I was like, okay, what do I do now? Right? I read the book. I understand own the asset. But how do you buy the asset? So then it was when I went to a seminar, I randomly stumbled upon it because way back then there weren't a lot of real estate seminars that were going around that seemed any good. Not like today. Today there's a ton of them. But then, back then when I first started, I didn't know what I was actually stumbling upon, and I didn't know that it would absolutely change my life. So I went to the seminar and I was taught how to buy properties using other people's money, having the perspective of a real estate investor, not a home buyer, right? It's different points of view. And if you're not yet an investor, you may not understand what I'm saying, right? You may not understand. What do you mean? The point of view from an investor, not a home buyer. Aren't they the same thing? I didn't understand the difference either. I didn't, until I went to the seminar and I was formally taught how to become an investor, how to raise private money, right? How to become this investor who had access to capital that could be used to buy the assets. So when I went to the class, when I went to the seminar, I learned about this concept of raising money. I learned about the concept of buying the asset using other people's money, and then learning how to refinance using a bank so that I can pay back the investors and have no money stuck in the deal. I was just like, that's crazy. Like, you can really do that? You can actually buy properties and not have any money in the deal? That's insane. There's no way. There's no way. So after the class, though, I went to the drawing board and I just got sheets of paper out and I just kept working. I worked the equations and I worked the examples that I was taught. It was like, buy it at this loan to value, and then invest this much money, and then rent it out for this much money, hit this debt service coverage ratio, do this, do that, refinance, cash out, do it again. And I was amazed, right? So I knew how to do the formulas inside and out after going to this class. And they weren't that difficult. And actually, based on working the formulas enough, I simplified it to the point where I could do it on a calculator within 10 seconds, right? So I can analyze properties within 10 seconds, 15 seconds, just on a calculator without paper. Just do it like that and tell you whether the deal works or not. So, but when I was first doing it, I was not that guy. I was just like, oh my God, this is crazy. There's no way this is real. But I just had that belief. I just had that belief that it could happen, right? I kept having that belief that it could happen. So when I finally learned how to do it, I was presented with a deal, right? I was presented with the deal, and I was like, okay, now it's time. Now it's time for me to actually put it into place, right? Actually take all of the work that I had been doing on paper, as they call it, like paper trading. Now it's time to actually buy a property. And so my first deal was a 6-unit apartment building. And I was like, whoa, don't people usually start with like a single family home? But I had worked the numbers over and over and over. And the thing is, I was still super scared. I was super scared. Don't let people fool you. They seem macho and all that. Like, don't let people fool you. Like, this is scary. This is scary to a lot of people for a lot of reasons. And I kept asking myself, what am I scared of? Right? So my advice to you guys, if you guys are worried about starting something like this as well, becoming a real estate investor, buying properties, and you guys are worried that things are going to go wrong. I was worried, right? I was worried. Absolutely. So I would ask myself, what am I afraid of? What might go wrong that I'm scared of? So, for example, I was worried that I wouldn't be able to rent out my building, right? So I had the 6-unit apartment building. I was afraid that I wasn't going to be able to rent out my building for the price that I had set. So at the time, the 2-bedroom apartments were going for $850. At least in my mind, I was going to rent them out for $850. I had done an analysis of the neighborhood, and I saw how much things were rented for. I said, okay, if I rent it out for $850, the deal works. Okay, nothing hard about that. If I rent the properties out, if I rent out the units for $850, the deal works. But what if nobody wants to rent it, right? Nobody wants to rent. Okay, well, it's a little irrational to think that there are no renters. So if nobody is renting, it's for one reason alone. because it's overpriced. Okay, because it's overpriced. And I was like, okay, if the properties are 850 and I don't get any renters, then I would have to drop the price. So instead of having the units at 850, I have them at 825. Does the deal still work? Let me drop it again. 800. Does this deal still work? 775, 750, 725, 700. And I just kept dropping the rent in my mind and on paper when I was doing the analysis. And I kept dropping the rent and asking myself the question again, would somebody rent this unit at this price? At some point, the price is going to be low enough that somebody's going to say yes. And I then asked this second question, what's the likelihood of this not renting for that price? And I was like, wow, $100 less than the whole neighborhood? That it not renting is highly unlikely. So at some point, there was some level of confidence. There was this level of certainty that if I drop the rents low enough, then I would get a renter, right? So that fear that I had that I couldn't find a renter, that went away. That went away. I was like, okay, because even though I dropped the rents, the deal still worked, right? I didn't need my rents to be at 100% in order for the deal to work. And I actually realized that the rents could be significantly lower and the deal still worked. So that eliminated the fear big time. So as you guys are trying to become a real estate investor, ask yourself, what are you scared of, right? What are you scared of? People are like, oh, what if it doesn't go, what if the deal doesn't work? That question is too broad. There's no substance to it. You have to ask yourself specific questions. Well, what if you can't rent it out? What if you can't get the value that you're looking for? What if somebody doesn't pay the rent, right? And then when you ask yourself those questions, you can figure out answers. And you can also figure out how to mitigate risk. So the question of what if somebody doesn't pay the rent? Well, that's always going to be an option, right? That's always going to be something that comes up. And that happens for all real estate investors. But are there real estate investors today? Absolutely. So ask yourself, how do they handle that risk? How do they mitigate that risk? And it's easy. Last month's security is collected. And so if they're not paying, then you do an eviction. Or like today, in this market right now, there are a lot of renters who are not paying. But I had the foresight to be able to think that, hey, the market might drop, something might happen, and the renters may not be able to pay rent. How do I mitigate that risk? Well, a lot of my properties are Section 8. So I have a lot of government subsidized programs renting from me. So because I have that, a lot of my income is backed by the government. It's secured that way. So a lot of this fear comes from not asking better questions. When you ask yourself, well, what happens if the deal fails? Well, that's too broad. That has no substance to it. When you ask yourself a better question, like what happens if the tenant doesn't pay rent? Well, you can then begin to ask yourself or figure out mitigating or ways to mitigate your risk. It's that simple. It is that simple, but because of fear is so large and empowering, it's just overwhelming, I should say, because fear is so overwhelming. A lot of times you don't ask yourself really good questions, and that's the problem. The thing that also allowed me to begin my real estate investing journey was that I had a mentor. One who taught the seminar actually became my mentor, and I was able to ask him questions directly like, hey, I'm stuck. What do I do here? Hey, I need an architect. Who would you recommend? I need an attorney. Who would you recommend? I need a plumber. Who would you recommend? Right? So I had somebody that I could ask these questions, and that really just, again, that confidence, that level of confidence increased. So when I got let go from my engineering job, luckily for me, I went to that real estate course before I got let go, because then I learned how to become a real estate investor, and I was able to purchase my property right before I got let go. Now, even if I had gotten let go before I figured it all out, the things that I learned about taught me how to buy real estate even if I didn't have a job. But because of what I learned, I had the property and now I had the free time. I was able to go buy more and more and more. So I had the unemployment, like a lot of you guys will have. I had the unemployment, and then I had the knowledge, and then I had the confidence, right? So those things. I had the unemployment, the knowledge, and the confidence. So then what happened is I took more actions and I got more results. And by having more results, meaning I bought more properties, I had more income. That's how I generated so much more income, even though I got let go. And for a lot of you, you don't realize this, but this is the most, like, how do I say this? This is one of the greatest. This is going to be one of the greatest moments in your investing career. This is going to be one of the greatest moments in your investing career. You just don't know it yet because we're not far along enough yet. Like Steve Jobs says, you can't connect the dots moving forward. You can only look back to see what happened and be like, oh, because of the COVID-19 and then because of the quarantine, I was able to focus on learning. And then because I focused on learning, I did the example that Hone gave, and then I had the confidence, and then I took the action, and then I bought all of these properties, and then the economy came out of quarantine, right? The economy then roared ahead, and my net worth went from, say, $10,000 to now worth millions because I bought the assets when they were cheap, like they will be today or soon. Think about that, guys. Do you want to buy the properties when they're at the highest value, or do you want to buy the properties at the lowest value? As I'm saying it to you just like that, you're like, oh, obviously I want to buy them when they're low. But here's what's crazy. They are low when the market is the most uncertain. So people, their brains, because of fear, can't operate. But if you could just step back and not allow that fear to overwhelm you, you will see that what's coming up is going to be the biggest buying opportunity of your life, right? This is why they say like there's this wealth transfer. It's situations like this where people are going to be buying assets, a ton of assets that over time will appreciate. And if the prices came way down, that means this is a buying opportunity. You don't want to buy them way up here, right? Buy low, sell high. I say that. You hear it. You know it. You're like, oh, yeah, of course. Then why are you not focused on figuring out how to buy now? Because the prices are going down. This is where it's going to be low. That's why you need to focus on your education now. I want you guys to be able to buy the assets while the buying is good. This is the time. People are waiting for some other time, like when the market's super high again. You've missed it. You've missed the wealth transfer. That's what I'm trying to tell you guys. You've completely missed the wealth transfer. You want to be able to buy now. You want to be able to know how to buy now. The thing is, most people, they only know how to put a 20% down payment, 30% down payment, or the other thing is they say like, oh, I don't have any credit, right? I don't have any credit. I don't have any money. I don't have any time. Well, now you have the time, and if you have enough knowledge, you don't need the money or the credit. And that's what I've learned over the years, because I've trained enough real estate investors to know that if they can do it, you guys can do it. If I can do it, you can do it. It's one of those things, but you won't believe it until you do it. And you definitely won't do it until you learn how. A lot of times people think they already know, and that's the problem. The thing is you don't know, right? You don't know. You don't know how to look at deals from an investor point of view. You know how to look at them from a home buyer's point of view. You only know how to put a percent down to buy the asset. Well, you're going to run out of money if you do that. So if you learn enough, you don't have to save money for years and years. You don't necessarily have to improve your credit. You don't have to do any of those things, right? Those excuses, those reasons that you're telling me I don't have the money saved and I don't have the credit, all of those things that you say, all that does is puts a barrier in front of you that you can't get around. So if you just learned how to invest, if you learned how to raise money, if you learned how to do deals, without your credit, then you'll be able to do deals. Stop putting the barriers in front of you. This is what I've learned way back when I was studying. I wasn't born a real estate investor. I didn't even like real estate. It was boring, and I thought I didn't have enough money. Right? I thought it was boring. Like, who cares? Why would you want to own a house? I thought it was boring, and I thought I didn't have enough money. But when I learned how to properly buy real estate as an investor, that changed everything. That completely changed everything. So I was able to buy house after house after house after house, and I didn't use much of my own money. It was crazy because I wouldn't have been able to afford all of the houses I bought if I was using my own money. So that's the big difference. If you guys are interested in learning how to become a real estate investor, I would say you first have to learn how to do it. And luckily for you, now our classes are virtual, and they are Tuesday at 7 o'clock. So the next one is tomorrow. And if you guys want to join, it's virtual, it's free. Go to the website, iescapemy95/meeting. It's been scrolling at the bottom of this Facebook Live. And if you guys are interested in attending, again, iescapemy95.com/meeting, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That will, the education that you get from attending a meeting could absolutely change your life. When I stumbled across that real estate meeting, I'm going to say, what was this? About 10 years ago, maybe 10, 11 years ago, it changed my life. It completely changed my life. So I don't know what's going to happen to your life. Your career could end up being 10 times better than mine, but you will never be able to connect the dots moving forward, right? You will never be able to connect the dots moving forward. You will not have realized that this live video that you have to attend, or you're watching the recording, you won't realize that this video is the thing that started it all. Like for me, when I went to that first seminar, I didn't know that that would be the one that started it all. Okay, so we have a question. Let's see. So I just found this property here in South Florida. I want to purchase a duplex, and I'd love to learn how to do this with zero down. Absolutely. So you can absolutely figure out how to purchase this property with zero down. The questions that I might have for you are, how do you know that this is a good deal? Right? Who taught you how to analyze the property? Do you want to just buy the duplex because you think it's a good idea to buy duplexes? So not every property that's for sale is something that you necessarily want to buy. It's a property for sale. It's a duplex, great, right? It has 2 units to produce income for you, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's a good deal. So unless you learn how to analyze the property, how do you know whether or not you want to pursue it? So that's part of it, right? How do you know? How do you know? And that's what I needed to learn. When I first tried to buy properties, it was actually a triplex that was $200,000. And that's how I was doing the math, that my 30% down payment would be $60,000. And I was just like, wow, I might be able to buy that one triplex. Then I'm stuck. Then what, right? Then what? So I didn't move forward because I didn't ask. I didn't have the right questions to ask. Okay, the response. This is a decent response. I have had a duplex for 11 years. Great. That's a 50% response, right? So, and what do I mean by that? It's like a lot of people become landlords and they buy properties, and they bought it because they felt like buying it, and it worked out to be a good deal. So then they think that, okay, I have a little experience, and so I want to do it again. So do you know of all of the analysis that you need to do? Do you know what the debt service coverage ratio would be after you get your loan? Do you know what your cash flow is going to be after baking in vacancy management and maintenance on top of the taxes, insurance, and utilities, right? Have you done that analysis? And then do you know what your loan to value would be if you were to refinance the property? So there's a lot of questions. And if you weren't formally taught this, how do you learn this? Now, you might know it. And if you know it, great. If you know it, great. And if you want to do a zero down deal, great. You need to learn how to do those as well. So that might fall into the realms of creative creative acquisition strategies. You may do a seller finance deal. You may do a subject to deal. You may do a lease option, right? There are multiple ways. There are multiple ways to buy the properties with no money down. So if you are intelligent enough to have run all the numbers, right? So she's saying that she ran all the numbers and she found that it was a good deal. Great. So then I guess the question is, what's stopping you? What's stopping you? And maybe it's the lack of understanding how to do the deal with 0% down. So then that is what you got to learn next, right? There's always something to learn. And even people who have some experience, there's always something else to learn. Like I'm saying this now, buying properties with none of your own money. How do you do that? Well, somebody like the person who's commenting has a duplex already, has been an investor for 11 years. Great. Wants to buy another one. Great. But maybe doesn't know how to finance the deal in a way where they don't have to bring any money. So there's many different options, and I'm not necessarily going to go over all of them here, but that's where the training comes in. So if you guys want to attend the training, again, there's the link, iescapemy9to5.com/meeting. Register, sit in on a meeting, join the group, be surrounded by the people who are doing what it is that you want to do. And so you can always ask them the questions. You can always ask them the questions, and then you can also hear the questions that they're asking. Because a lot of times we don't know how to create good questions if we've never heard good questions. Right? People don't know how to ask themselves, what is going to be my debt service coverage ratio, if they've never heard of debt service coverage ratio. Your questions get better as you surround yourself with people who are asking good questions. You then learn what to ask. You then learn what you need to learn. A lot of times it's unclear. It's completely unclear. So if you're interested in becoming a real estate investor, if you got laid off already, if you don't have a job, great. This could be the greatest moment of your life, or at least the greatest moment of your financial life. If you already hated your job, and now you lost your job, fantastic. This is the moment you were looking for. If you still have your job, but you were looking to transition, fantastic. You get to transition because now you'll figure out how to have assets that will pay you while you're in transition mode. And if you love your job, fantastic. Though you don't need money and you don't need your own credit to do deals, it's easier if you have it, right? It's easier if you have it. So having money or not having money, don't let either one of those things stop you. If you don't have it, great. You have to learn the other ways. If you have it, great, because it's easier. It's easier to do if you have the money. So those are all the things that you guys have to consider. Just because you've lost your job, it doesn't mean that this is the end. This is just the beginning, right? Just because the market crashed, this is not the end. This is the beginning. Remember, buy low, sell high. I don't know why people are so scared right now. Why are people so scared when the rule has always been buy low, sell high? This is when you buy. This is the low that you've all been praying for. This is the low that everybody's been talking about. But the problem is people don't know what to do. And that's where people like me come into place, right? Into play. We show you what we know. And then when you learn what we know, you get to do it too. It's not rocket science. Some of it could be complicated. I've been told I have a good way of simplifying things so that people can understand it. But this opportunity is available for you. And this is the moment you want to get in. You don't want to get in when the market's high. That's when everybody gets slaughtered. Here's the curve. When prices are low, like now, and there's no money available for you to borrow because a lot of banks are putting everything on pause, and because you don't have an experience, they don't want to lend it to you either, right? You can't get the money. And because you only knew how to buy properties with money that you have access to, and you only knew to access bank money, then you feel like you're out of the game. So then you don't buy anything, right? And so only the people who know what to do are actually buying all of the assets at the super low price. And then the market starts going up. And then those people who bought at the really low price have all of this net worth because their assets all of a sudden just jumped 25% in value. So their net worth is so much higher. But then they are eligible for even more money. They go buy more assets, right? And it looks crazy. So then they're buying all of these assets and they have more assets and they know what to do with. So then what they do is they go out and they teach other people how to do it. They work with other people to buy the assets as well because they want to take down as many assets as possible. So they go out and they teach other people, like I'm doing now. I'm teaching you, you become my ally, not my competition. You become my ally, not my competition, right? That's the part people don't get. So I'm teaching you how to become a real estate investor. And then together, we take out more properties. We take down more property. We have more assets. And then I have my portfolio and you have your portfolio. And now we're all rich, right? So it grows and grows and grows. And then the market is reaching a boiling point. It is getting to become the most valuable it's ever hit. And that's when money is so loose that everybody gets in. Everybody gets in, right? There's a frenzy of people joining the party. Everybody who didn't know what to do before now feel like geniuses because they're buying properties with all of this loose money. So because they're buying properties with all of this loose money, they're like, oh yeah, I'm in the business. And at that time, all of the seasoned investors are starting to take a step back. They're like, wow, these prices are too high. You know who's paying the overly inflated prices? The brand new people who don't know what they're doing, right? So all of the seasoned investors kind of took a step back and all of the new people jumped in at the height of the market because they're like, oh, this is the time to jump in. This is the time to jump in. And then they jump in and then the crash happens and it wipes everybody out who didn't know what they were doing. They didn't have enough capital reserves to protect them. They overbought properties. Their cash flow was negative from the day they bought it. They were trying to do a value add, but there was no more value to be added. So they lost everything. The market crashes. And we're back to this low point. We're back to this low point. This is the moment that all of the seasoned real estate investors were waiting for. When the market goes back down, they use all of their knowledge to buy properties from all of the people who didn't know what they were doing. I've said this before, but good investors buy from bad investors. Good investors buy from bad investors. And good investors buy from bad investors when bad investors are in a lot of trouble. This is the time to get in, not later when the market is at a boiling point. This is the time. This is the moment that everybody's been waiting for. But if you can't see it, you're going to be following the herd just like everybody else. And so when everybody's bleeding and everybody's like in a bloodbath, you'll be with them, bleeding along with them. This is the time you buy. This is the time you learn. When you don't have your job, when you can't go outside because you're quarantined, and when you have nothing better to do but focus on you, working on your business, right? Minding your business. This is the time. This right now, this moment may or may not be the buying time because believe it or not, I think that property values are going to go down, potentially go down if markets don't open back up soon. Incomes are drying up every single day, and landlords won't be able to float their properties anymore from their cash reserves, and they're going to have to fire sale things. They're going to sell at low prices. Hopefully, you are in a position to purchase their properties and help them from bleeding anymore. So what we get to do is offer a solution to people who are bleeding, and the solution is to not bleed anymore, to reset their life. So if you know solutions on either how to buy it from them or how to partner with them, right? If you can offer a solution that helps them, you get to benefit in a very big way. So it really depends on how financially intelligent you are. And when I started going down the rabbit hole of financial literacy, increasing my financial intelligence, my life completely changed. My assets made more money for me than I ever made for myself working by the hour. I could never make as much by the hour as my assets were making for me by the hour. That's what you guys get to learn. You get to learn that, and you get to benefit from buying properties at super low prices. And then when the market turns back around, you get to benefit. That's how your net worth grows, by leaps and bounds. That's how you have a quantum leap, not this gradual, like, please let me get a 1% pay raise, a 2% pay raise. That slow pay raise growth, you never make it ahead. You never get to hit multimillionaire with these 1% raises. But if you own a ton of properties, if you own a ton of assets, and they all appreciate at the same time because the market changed, all of a sudden your net worth could hit multi-millions. Not saying that it will, but it could, and you guys understand that. If you owned 10 properties, and every property went up $100,000 in value, that's $1 million. So the question is, how do you buy 10 properties? That's what you got to learn. And have properties gone up $100,000 in value? Absolutely. If you bought a property in 2012 and you held on to it until 2016, 2017, it went up $1 million, or I'm sorry, 100,000. And if you had 10 of them, that's $1 million. That's absolutely happened. It has happened in your lifetime. You already got to witness it. So my question is now, do you know how to take advantage of the opportunities that are in front of you? This is going to be the buying moment, right? This is going to be the buying moment. So hopefully you join the class tomorrow. So let me know if you guys have any questions. Feel free to message me. Hopefully I see you guys on the class tomorrow. And we run these every Tuesday. You want to get around the people who are doing business, who are asking good questions, who are increasing their net worth, who are collecting assets. You want to get around those people because they know what to do. Knowledge, confidence, action, and results. That's how you do it. If you want results, then you better have the knowledge now. All right, guys. Well, that is it. Thank you guys for staying on this Facebook Live or YouTube Live or watching the recording, however you're watching this. Thank you guys all for spending the time with me. Hopefully you guys picked up a couple of nuggets, and I hope to see you in the future trainings. See ya.